My wife and I have shared a connection for many years. We were both raised in the same neighbourhood of a quaint town. Actually, she grew up right before my very eyes, considering she is 7 years my junior. I can still recall her as a tiny little girl. Life took me along a different path as I matured and enrolled in a university in the big city, and in the chaos of it all, I inadvertently lost track of her. Then, out of the blue, she came to me when she was in her last year of school. By that time, I had founded my own company and was quite settled in life. I was not married at the time, although I was dating someone. But lo and behold, Myla came back into my life, and I was completely smitten. We started dating, and I found myself rushing back to my dorm like a giddy teenager, unable to imagine spending even one day without her. To the girl who had become somewhat of a distant memory, I laid bare all my thoughts and asked her to part ways amicably, sans any drama. I can still picture her distress and how she cautioned me about the game. It's unfortunate that, at that moment, I didn't take her warning to heart. In the blink of an eye, I forgot about everything, tied the knot, and plunged headlong into family life. God, if I had only known then how accurate she was, and how much mental suffering my dear wife would eventually bring. But let's not rush things. Here's the story, step by step. Our relationship developed at breakneck speed, and soon Myla gave birth to our dear son. As expected, she took 3 years of maternity leave. After that, she began to persuade me to join my company. My son goes to kindergarten, and my conscience would not allow me to call her an ineffective employee. For your information, I have talented marketers who can organize such a mind-blowing campaign to sell ordinary sweets that customers rush to buy them. Therefore, others often had to clean up after her at work. However, at that time, she strutted around the office like a hostess, even though she had a good relationship with her colleagues. Oh my God, I've often heard whispers behind my back. Initially, I assumed my wife's struggles were due to her lack of skill, but soon uncovered a far deeper issue. The shocking revelation of her affair with a youthful coder left me reeling. In a rush to access my emails before an important meeting, I opted to use her laptop. It was there I stumbled upon an exchange with my secretary, detailing her escapades vividly. Fortuitously, she was not present at the time. Delving into the messages, my realization dawned. I had erred gravely in marrying someone so deceitful. Moreover, she had been confiding in the office's most notorious rumour monger. This explained the persistent murmurings and snickers from my staff, leaving me the unwitting butt of workplace jokes, portrayed as the clueless fool. My frustration was through the roof, but I managed to pull myself together and set out to hash things out. That night, I didn't make it back home. I crashed at the office. I knew I'd better steer clear of alcohol, or I'd totally lose my cool. She often acts without thinking and does really dumb stuff. The next morning, I asked the business centre's security guy to keep her out of the office, then called in the programmer to chat. No matter how confident I was, he clearly had the upper hand, young, fit, and not bad-looking at all. Once he strolled into the office, I laid it out plain and simple. I was already clued in. But then he spilled the beans himself. Turns out there was a lot more to the story. He wasn't the first one she'd been messing around with. There was the department head before him, and before that, just the regular chauffeur. The entire team had been silently tuning into her escapades. Saying I felt humiliated would be putting it mildly. I hadn't even given it a second thought. I was just gonna give everyone the boot without a word of explanation. As much as I dreaded it, I knew I had to face her. What did I ever do to you for you to go all out to humiliate me? Honestly, That was the one thing that had been bugging me the most. "Cool as a cucumber," Mela replied. "We've just got different personalities, and you, being the grown-up here, should get that. Sorry if you can." Right then, she was so sure of herself, convinced I'd stick around and put up with all the nonsense. Catching my bewildered expression, she went on, "We have a kid, and before you go making any big decisions, think about what it'll be like for our boy to grow up without his dad." My outrage knew no bounds. I even declared vehemently, "Whoever said your son would stay with you? Gather your belongings and stay out of my sight." It was the first occasion my son and I vacationed alone, and by the time we got back, I had somewhat regained my composure. The divorce was finalized swiftly, thanks in part to some well-placed connections, and thankfully, my son remained with me. We live together now, and I'm not looking for a new relationship at the moment. I don't prevent her from seeing her son, though. The same programmer who intervened was dealt with quickly and never crossed paths with her again. Things settled into a good rhythm. Those who once supported her gradually faded away, leaving her isolated. She tearfully sought forgiveness, but I have no intention of offering it. I'm tired of enduring these constant jibes. Ultimately, her attempts to settle in the capital faltered due to my interventions. No firm would employ her based on my scathing referrals. Following my less than glowing endorsements, she returned to our small hometown to live with her parents. She now earns a meager wage working at a roadside diner. All in all, she should have used her head for thinking rather than other pursuits.